going on? It's your boy Buddha, back in the building for another last Cloudia video, one that I promised I would make upon returning and settling back into town, and that is going over the newest or most up-to-date global tier list created by some of the users from the Last Cloudia unofficial Discord. I know our boy Tweaks plays a big hand in making this, so a lot of the framing around how good and the usage of these units I am familiar with because I talk with him so much, which just gives me a little more confidence in these ratings because I know how much he tests and uses these units before giving them his 2 cents on them. It's also a resource managed by Meowing Cat and probably some other Discord mods that I'm just not super familiar with at the moment. So thank you guys for putting this together, making a very nice, easy to read, easy to understand list so that we can figure out what the deal is in today's Last Cloudia climate. Mr. Fruits, thanks for subscribing, bro. Welcome to the Buddha Gang. So in this video, we're looking at the top tier units. We're going to be going from the lower top tier to the best of the best, just to add a little more suspense to get to the end of the video rather than starting with the best that I've done in the past in my other tier list videos. But I want to go up. We've got some ways to go because there are quite a few units now in the top of the top tiers. I consider from rating 9 to 10, anywhere in between. Those are going to be your top tier units. Units that if you want to do the most efficient clears or have the best advantage in certain areas of the game, these are going to be the units that you're using. So without further ado, let's just dive into it. Starting off with the girl, we got Tinkili. You can see some of the units listed below her, still very, very high tier, but not in that top tier pool. But getting back to Tinkili, she does now, with her 5-star buffs, land right at that 9, right enough to consider her top tier. We know that she's of the element light. Main role is as a buffer, but she can also act as support. Looking at the average ratings in different areas of the game, we have general usage. This is going to be without all of the stops, all of the resources available to build her out with. Just going to be probably what your average player can do with her. She does fall below that 9 at an 8.5, but still extremely useful. Any units in between 8 and 9 as well should not be slept on. High difficulty, assuming that you have her built up a bit and ready to go for certain events, she does fall into that 9 category. And ideal usage, she does get a 9.5 if you can take advantage of all of like limited skills, resources, UR arcs. She's absolutely incredible. In arena, she still falls very short. So Tinkili is definitely going to be your meta PvE character support role, but not so much in arena. She is available on the general pool. And then the notes for her, she is now the premier offensive support in the game. Equipping staff clothes accessory lets her skills and special have added effects. Super quick charging special. It is best used in support of other PDPS. 5,000 physical cap plus 50% skill special damage and other great effects. She gives more break. She gives more damage when in break, so she gives absolutely insane buffs. And that's the thing, is that her super quick charging special will constantly be refreshing. So even though she pumps out these temporary buffs, if you're able to stack more buff duration things on her, items or skills or things from arcs, you can make it last so that those buffs are pretty much infinite as long as you keep remembering to refresh that special. Tinkili takes the crown as the only special that I like to see in multiplayer, because I know directly after that special, all of the DPS on the team is going to look like even more monsters than they usually already are. So I'm very happy Tinkili sits now at top tier in consideration to the other units with her 5-star buffs. Great addition to the game. Next, we're looking at Beyland, who also with his 5-star buff jumped up to a 9, so back up to top tier for our boy Beyland. Partly one, because he is of the neutral element. For those who don't know, neutral element is technically no element. So these kinds of units don't have to worry about fighting against any resistances. So immediately your neutral DPS they're going to have an advantage over a lot of your other elemental DPS just because they don't have to worry about any kind of elemental resistances. Main role is PDPS. Sub role, they don't really give him one, but I know Tweaks does use him as a pseudo tank. He calls him as an allure tank. Because he can be a very reliable SCT battery because he can charge his MP with Goddess Kiss procs due to his normal attacks with a neutral type weapon being able to regenerate MP so well. For general use, he does have an 8.8, so not quite that 9 that we see on the average rating, and probably what most players are going to experience him as, just under that top tier, but still very, very useful. High difficulty PvE, right? He's geared to take on harder events, and he does get that 9.1, so he crosses over into top tier there. And ideal usage, if you have all the stops, everything available to you, he does jump up to a 9.4. Arena still at a 7.2, kind of lackluster, very squishy still. So again, another PvE dominant character we have here. Beyland is DOH semi-limited, so you will have to wait for his returns on any kind of DOH Descent of Heroes banners that they release, which he will definitely be on in the upcoming Ultra DOH banner that they're dropping on the 2.5 anniversary. So here are his notes after buff. Incredible damage mods, can do single wield or dual wield well, and has insane SCT recovery with instant cast contemplation, utilize your Goddess Kiss procs, awesome neutral damage unit, and charisma enables higher team damage caps. If you aren't familiar, Beyland does have a charisma, which is a team-wide buff. There can only be one active at a time, but Beyland's in particular gives a plus 2,000 damage cap to the whole team, physical damage cap, which is just extremely, extremely nice and meta at the current moment. Lafine, which is his paid sword, still so busted with dual wield because it acts as more SCT charge for him, and he's a wonderfully buffed unit. So again, just an incredible, right, neutral attacker. So he holds his own in the DPS department while also supporting the rest of the team with more damage cap DPS. And if you do have his paid sword, which I absolutely despise, this is honestly what pushes him up to that 9.4, I think, with this ideal usage, because his SCT sustain just becomes infinite at that point, from what I understand. Now looking at Guardian Angel Lukiel, who's already at a 9, and we know that her 5-star buffs are incoming. I am almost certain that these 5-star buffs for like Guardian Angel Lukiel, Logia, maybe Blaze Blade, but I can't see, like, I don't think they're going to go and make this girl absolutely insanely busted, because she already comes with so much. As you can see, she is a very old unit, and she's still sitting at a 9, so still top tier. But let's go ahead and look through. She is a Thunder element unit. Main role PDPS, sub role can be a healer or a mage. For general usage, she does have an 8.7, so another one of these units that falls just below a 9. That's going to be what your average player experiences her like. High difficulty, 9.2. And ideal usage, she does still hold her 10. We have a note here. Instant 2x ult with Great War of Ruin UR arc allows for the greatest DPS this game has to offer, because her ultimate literally freezes time, puts you in front of the boss can't do anything, can't move, and it increases your skill stock charge time by an insane amount. So you literally have the window of frozen time to deal as much damage as you want, basically never-ending damage, as much as you can dish out. So she has probably the most still broken combo in the game, but it does require the Great War of Ruin UR arc, which a lot of people aren't going to have. I myself still don't have it, but having those two together and some other limited skills, that's what pushes her up to that 10 rating. So very, very niche and limited things that you're going to need to make Lukiel look as good as she can. But when you have those things, oh my gosh, she definitely deserves this rating still. But in Arena, she does fall very short, very squishy. I don't think her DPS is there in the arena space, because we know that those things are different. So another meta PvE unit, but not arena so much. She's available in the general pool, so you can get her at any point in time that you're summoning, which is always a bonus. And in terms of notes, with one of the best specials in the game, GA Lukiel is able to time freeze and spam her skills to pump out damage and break. She also brings great healing and a revive, meaning she has more SC to put into other places while still keeping her team alive. She will likely want to hold your Trishula, as we know, because she is locked behind Thunder Element. We like to put Trishula on those units that are our main DPS role if they have an element, so that that elemental resistance is not affected in any way. But that does require you to give her the skill Machine Equip and sacrifice a weapon slot that's not of the lightning element for Goddess Kiss procs. Things you need to think about, but still absolutely insane. Guardian Angel Lukiel still a top tier unit to this day. Moving on to Divine Beast Rei. DB Rei, my boy, sitting at a 9 rating, so still top tier, which I love. And with his 5-star buffs, he really didn't get anything except more damage cap. So again, I think not increasing his rating here is still fine. His DPS didn't like drastically change with his damage cap bonus, so I think him still at a 9 even after his 5-star buffs is pretty accurate. He's also of the Thunder, main role PDPS, sub role Bruiser and Breaker. So yeah, DB Rei is very nice, especially for new players, because just by building out his kit and not having much at your disposal, he's going to deal very, very nice damage while also being pretty tanky and serving as a breaker, which helps you take down those early game bosses. General usage, he's kind of right there with Lukiel at that 8.7, so what your average player is going to experience with him. High difficulty, he gets a 9.1, and ideal usage a 9.2. So as you can see, even when you get those limited things, a lot of DB Rei's power and potential comes in his base kit. You don't need too much more to make him look great, and so I really like that. I think that's something you should pay attention to, is in how big is this gap between your general usage and your ideal usage. That will basically tell you how much you're going to need extra to stack onto these units to bring out their full potential. DB Rei is in a very comfortable position whether you have everything or you don't. That's why I recommend him for new players a lot of the times, because he is able to be a self-sustaining just powerhouse for your early game experience. And look at that, he's actually our first top tier unit who has a very top tier rating in Arena because of his DPS, because of his tankiness. It all translates over to Arena, and some of his unique quirks help him a lot, like not being able to be flinched by Blizzard in Arena. He is a DOH semi-limited unit as well, so you will have to wait until banners that have him come back around. And for notes, you can see tanky lightning burst attacker with one of the best healing spells in the game. That's facts. Does lack mitigations for thunder resistant enemies, so he might occupy your Trishula, keep that in mind. Innate dual wield and heavy damage make him an amazing unit to start an account with. So exactly what I was saying. Glad I'm on the same page as the tier list makers. Here is something I have been avoiding for so long, but I gotta put some respect on Leona Princess Punch's name. She does make it into a top tier spot, rightfully so. I can't deny it. As much as I don't like that she's single wield and I'm a dual wield meta simp, this girl, she did introduce a very, very cool thing into the game, and that was the revival of single wield, while also being very potent on her own, both offensively and defensively. She's of the Earth element, main role PDPS and Bruiser, so you can see those are her two main roles. General usage, she does have a 9, so immediately she's going to be a unit that serves new players well, because you don't need much to have her look top tier, especially in the DPS department. High difficulty, she does actually fall below 9 and go to an 8.8, but then ideal usage, she jumps back up to a 9.4. So high difficulty, I think she struggles because with your high difficulty world bosses that you have to take on in endgame, you're going to need to be able to work around elemental resistances, which is very doable if you have everything, right? I think when you have the proper tools in order to lower earth elemental resistance, that's what puts her up to that 9.4 in ideal usage. But if you don't have those things, she's going to get walled by any end game content that resists earth in any type of way. So I think that's what drops her actually below the general usage right here, and it does make sense now that I'm saying it that way. However, once you can lower those elemental resistances and use like earth res down spells and skills, she does jump back up to being an extremely potent character. And in Arena, she deals a very, very heavy punch, literally. so she is able to sit in the top tier spot in Arena as well. I should mention the reason you're not able to really use Trishula on Leona is because she's not only single wield locked, but she's also claw weapon locked if you want to take advantage of her full DPS potential. So you have to run one claw, which leaves no room for having Trishula in your arsenal with this girl. Another DOH semi-limited unit. And for notes, the first of her kind, a mandatory single wield unit. Using dual wield shafts her damage output. Her key charges are a strong mechanic, and she can get very bulky, as we've seen with that Zeros video of him showcasing Leona. While her damage output can be high, she loses out since she cannot dual wield and use Trishula. So high earth res content is difficult for her, exactly as I was saying, until you can use other means to lower earth res, which you're going to need a lot to bring it down to that level where she's really effective. She's going to get walled in your end game. So moving up, our first character that actually crosses into the 9.1, right, crosses above that 9 flat rating is Nero. And I did start reviewing him, but then I thought, like, for those who are looking up this tier list, if you have been playing for a while, especially since the DMC collab, you probably already know what these collab characters bring. And the thing is, for the newbies that are checking out this game, you're not going to have access to these guys probably anytime soon. I could be wrong. They could do a rerun, surprise rerun after this 2.5 anniversary, but I don't see them doing that. And if they do, then maybe I'll come back and review these characters and the ratings. But for the purpose of this tier list, especially with like the Ultra DOH Festival banner coming up, I kind of want to just stick to units that will be available during this run so that those getting into the game will know and have a chance at the characters that we are reviewing in this video. So if you do want to check out the collab characters, and spoiler alert, there are a ton of them in the top tier of this tier list, go ahead, click the link. I'll drop the link to this tier list in the description below, of course, so you can check it out. In case you haven't been paying much attention, you stumbled across this video and you have some of these characters and you just want to know how good they are in today's standards, you can come check that out here. But like I said, for the purpose of this video, we're going to skip up until we get to our next either permanent or DOH unit. And lo and behold, right above Nero, we have Night Lord Kyle, who's another unit I don't really give the proper respect for, just because for me, him being a 2-year anniversary unit, he was so underwhelming, especially that it was even hit more home by the fact that Lougseus came out relatively soon after him, and Lougseus was the true power creep that I think myself and a lot of us were expecting for the 2-year anniversary unit. But Night Lord Kyle, still top tier, sitting at a 9.1. He is fire and light element, mainly fire. They really didn't do a good job with his light mods in his ability board, but I'm sure the notes will explain more of that when we get there. Main role, Bruiser, PDPS, Breaker. You can see Bruiser is above his PDPS because his DPS is not going to be his strongest suit. It is going to be the Bruiser potential that he has. He's very tanky. He provides tanky support to the team while also being able to easily deal out some nice damage. So just a nice support character. Let's see what he looks like in the different categories. For general usage PvE, he's going to get a 9, right? He's going to be one of those characters that is going to help you immediately. Very soon after starting to awaken his ability board, he's going to start looking pretty good with the skills that he has in his kit. High difficulty, he stays at that 9. So even when he's geared towards your end game, he's just sitting at that flat 9. But then his ideal usage, which I wish they had a note here. I'm trying to think what could push Kyle like up 0.2. Things like Honey Elixir and maybe like the strategy of bringing out his innate damage cap manually rather than relying on the weird mechanic that it has would bring him up to the 9.2. But as you can see, very consistent. As soon as you get him, you're going to probably see his potential just by unlocking his board, not by having too much additional stuff. However, in Arena, look at that, which is also something I knew. Night Lord Kyle is actually best for Arena. That's going to be his strongest role because of his Bruiser-like role and his DPS potential, those things actually do translate to the arena very well. You can see him run in a lot of top tier teams for that reason, and it does make sense to me that his arena would have the highest rating here. DOH semi-limited unit, as we know. And for notes, probably the best bruiser we have to date. Kyle has very good survivability for not only himself, but also for his entire team. Stackable barrier for teammates, quite strong damage but lacks consistent damage cap. Dual wield for full PvE damage potential and amazing break. Charisma has niche use, I think it's like HP cap increase plus 1,000 or something. But going back to lacks consistent damage cap, in one of Kyle's traits, the more times his teammates or himself drop below a certain health threshold, he gains 1,000 damage cap, up to 10,000 damage cap. So you have to like drop, one of your 4 team members need to drop below 10%, 10 times, or below 30%, 10 times before he gets his full unlocked damage cap. Now you can cheese this a little bit. I have a video up showing a manual way to unlock his plus 10,000 damage cap, but it's annoying. It takes time. You need resources in order to do it and some limited things. So not the most fun unit to use for DPS, but like it says, for a bruiser and team tank support, he definitely fills a very, very nice role. Oh, I'm happy to see this girl. The Pirate Queen Rover Maddine is also sitting at a 9.1. If I'm not mistaken, currently the best ice physical DPS that we have. I guess we'll find out as we keep going up the list. But main role, PDPS, as we can see. Sub role, I'm surprised it doesn't say like offensive team support, but maybe they'll go over that in the notes. For general usage, 9.3. Rover Maddine is just an absolute monster, incredible unit for characters, or for players to start out with. She synchronizes with Trishula extremely well. High difficulty, she does drop to an 8.8. That's because with high difficulty, you're looking at long events, right? Anything that is going to take probably upwards of 5 minutes more, give or take. A lot of Rover Maddine's benefits come from a temporary battle start buff that only lasts about 40 seconds. As soon as you lose her battle start buffs, she does drop, I would say, to that 8.8. So general usage, when you're clearing waves fast, going through early game, and your battles are quick, Rover Maddine is an absolute monster, putting her at that 9.3 for general usage. But then I can see for the high difficulty, longer events, she does drop below to an 8.8. However, in ideal usage, you can bring her up to a 9.3. Again, I'm curious as to what the exact reasoning is here, because there's no way to extend her buffs that she gives at the battle start and that are temporary. So I wonder what her ideal usage would be. I actually did just utilize her as a Winry's Apple Pie or WAP battery during the Galanova fight. So that was very useful because her damage was very nice in getting those Goddess Kiss procs. But, I mean, like I said, you lose out on those big buffs that she gives at the start of battle, so I'm wondering what this ideal usage is. Maybe it's saying ideal usage is this character in its best state, and that's going to be those fast battles, those fast-paced battles. So that's maybe what keeps her at that 9.3 here. For arena, she does get a 9 because she does give SCT at the start of battle, which is great for your team skill charge. And her buffs, because arena battles tend to be very quick, she's going to look very good. She also has some nice crowd control with her S2, so I can see why she does get a top tier spot in arena as well. And what I love about her is that she's a general pool unit. If you go back and check out my video when she released, I titled it, "This is a permanent unit?" ? Because as you can see, very top tier. She was very ahead of her time as a general pool unit, and I'm happy she makes the list. For notes, amazing PDPS potential. Synergizes really well with Trishula. Plus 2,000 cap stacks with Beyland's charisma. Thrives in the first 40 seconds of battle, but falls off a bit after that. For team-wide utility, plus 10 SCT trait stacks with other Maddines. That's another crazy thing, is if you run into a couple of these girls in multiplayer, let's say you have 2 of them on your team, you now get plus 20 seconds of SCT at the start of battle, which is very big. Can get you some skill charges very quick at the start. But yeah, just an incredible character. Very, very nice addition to the general pool. I wish they would release more units like her. Moving on to a lot of people's favorite mage, we got Sage Emperor Zekus holding a 9.2 rating. He is also a rainbow element style user, one because his skills are all multi-elemental, but also in his kit he comes with earth, fire, water, and thunder spells that you can utilize. For his main role, mage and PDPS, you will need some very niche and limited things in order to get this collab specific. So a lot of people won't be able to bring out his physical DPS potential, but as a support mage, you can see sub-role support. As a support mage, he is absolutely fantastic for any team. General usage, they do give him a 9.2, so another character that if you start out with, you're starting out strong. High difficulty, he actually drops to a 9.1, surprisingly. I mean, yes and no, because his DPS just doesn't handle the top tier content as much, although he can be a very nice support style unit, so he's still top tier. You got to think of it that way. Ideal usage, he does go up to a 9.3, because when you can take advantage of his physical DPS potential, he can look incredible in certain multiplayer bosses, and his support to the team, his tankiness, just a very, very well-built unit. You can see you don't need a lot, and you're going to be experiencing a lot of Sage Emperor Zekus' potential, just because of the range of general usage to ideal usage isn't too far off. Arena, great mage for Arena. Very tanky because he can tank fatal hits with his ability to just use MP as a health threshold, basically. And very quick, easy to build, since all of the modifiers and skills that you want for him to be your Blizzard spammer are already in his kit. Another DOH semi-limited unit, as we can see. And for notes, Sage Emperor Zekus is a phenomenal rainbow mage due to his great spells, ability to reduce resists. That's another thing I didn't mention. He does cut resistances in half, which is incredible, and his amazing survivability. He is also a solid PDPS due to Thaumaturgy Ring Plus. You're also going to need Science Flag, which is from the Dr. Stone collab, but his solid charisma and supportive capabilities are icing on the cake. That's right, Zekus does give a plus 1500 damage cap for the 4 elements that I mentioned: fire, ice, thunder, and earth. Goddess Kiss can make him immortal, literally, because if you can just keep recharging his MP, he will literally never die, which is incredible. Sitting above Sage Emperor Zekus, they actually give Rabbala a 9.2, who is of the earth element. She is main role a mage. She can be in sub, PDPS, and a debuffer. Let's take a look at her general usage, 9.2, so very good right out of the gate. High difficulty, she does drop down to an 8.9, surprisingly. And ideal usage, she does have a 9.5, so a little more of a gap. She's going to look incredible for a new player just starting out, clearing that early game. Once you get into high difficulty, you're going to need a little bit of help from other skills and select equipment, but once you do acquire that, she's going to jump up to that 9.5, which puts her at a very, very top tier level. I know Tweaks has made a lot of videos showcasing some of that top tier potential that Rabbala has to offer, and she is extremely impressive. Especially in Arena, she's also a top tier mage. I know one of her strongest suits in there is because she can lower elemental resistances right out of the gate. Starts off and puts that debuff on the team. She can also be a Grand Cross spammer, which is a very potent spell in PvP for keeping the enemy team, or I should say Arena, for keeping the enemy team just stunned and unable to move. DOH semi-limited, as we can see. And for notes, Rabbala has great earth magic and can do some crazy things with the proper setup. She is a bit situational, but if you build her properly and bring her to the right battles, she can really shine. Also does have a viable PDPS build. Now, I know that some of her potential did get taken away from the fact that they shadow nerfed cast canceling, even though this is something that not a lot of players, especially if you're new, it's literally not going to matter. But for the older players who knew about it, you could cast her Nether Tempest magic spell cancel yourself out of it, and while this crazy earth spell was dealing a ton of damage, you could be throwing her long distance physical damage skills as well, making her look like a DPS goddess. But now we can't do that so much, sadly. Still a great mage. She was really the first mage that started, I think, to make this curve of them attempting to bring mages back into relevancy. Now, of course, we have Shift Eliza, who I'm sure we'll see closer to the top. But I gotta give her credit to our girl Rabbala, who is still a very top tier unit and sits there with her main role being a mage. So props to our girl. Above Rabbala, how fitting, is Swordmagineer Lilebette, and I won't say any more. She still has a 9.3. Oh, I forgot to mention, I should say, both her and Sage Emperor Zekus are about to get their 5-star buffs. Again, like, I can't imagine they're going to do anything crazy to these characters because we can see they're already sitting at such a top tier ranking. They weren't released that long ago, so we'll see what they do. But before we get that info, Swordmagineer Lilebette is at that 9.3, who also is of the Earth element. Her main role is of a PDPS, but her sub role, she can be a debuffer. For general usage, she's got a 9.3, so another one of these characters where if you start out with her, you're going to be looking very good. She comes with a lot of the skills in her ability board, so as you're working and upgrading and unlocking her things, she's just going to start carrying you through a lot of that early game content. High difficulty, she does drop a little bit to a 9.1 because you're going to need some specific things in order to push her to a 9.5, bringing her up to her ideal usage. For end game and like multiplayer, she can be absolutely stunning, but it is going to require some help with SCT sustain, which I imagine is what causes this gap right here. For Arena, another super top tier unit, especially if you want a good DPSer. You have an incredible crowd control DPS with Swordmagineer Lilebette, so she definitely deserves that 9.3 Arena rating. Availability, DOH, semi-limited, and for the notes. With Trishula, she's able to counter almost any content with minimal setup. Her insanely boosted Slayer and Elemental weak damage, along with her gem of an S1, makes her one of the best PDPS this game has to offer. Goddess Kiss allows her to generate insane amounts of MP, can be pretty squishy, that is one of her downfalls, but she is able to regenerate because her normal attacks hit so hard. That damage then can transfer over to MP regeneration, which just makes, again, herself, her damage potential, and her debuffing capabilities so potent. Next, we have Alice Type S, crossing over with Swordmagineer Lilebette to a 9.3. I'm not going to go through a full review of her because she is seasonal, so she's not going to be available with this Ultra DOH banner that's coming up. But just know that next spring, or next summer, if they bring her back, I imagine she's still going to be a very good unit, depending on the power creep that we see in the next year. She came into the game very strong. Her DPS is very insane, and she's just top tier waifu, so what's there not to love about her? A2 we'll go ahead and skip over, but you can see they give her a 9.4, and just above her, we can move on to Regnant of Fire Eliza, who has a 9.4 rating as well. Element Fire, main role is Mage, sub role PDPS, but let's look at this. General usage PvE, 9.4. If you started the game, a lot of people have been saying, should I summon for Shift Eliza? A lot of people jumped in on the anniversary countdown. We've had Shift Eliza. Her banner is still active, if I'm not mistaken. And they're asking, should I summon for her? Listen, if you did, or if you are starting out with her and you're regretting it because of this 2.5 Annie that's coming around, I wouldn't regret it at all because you've still got an extremely top tier character who's going to be very useful for you right now, like with very limited amounts of things. You can see her general usage is a 9.4. Her Big Bang spell is literally the best mage spell that we've seen in the game for quite a while, and it's going to make your early game content look like cake. She's going to shred through a lot of content and seem like an extremely busted character for new players who have pulled her. In high difficulty, she does drop to a 9.2, but still, like, not that big of a drop. She's just going to need some help in order to push her to her true potential, which is that 9.8. So definitely there's a gap between high difficulty with a lot of resources versus high difficulty without a lot of resources. I did that backwards. But regardless, she's going to serve you very, very well no matter what stage in the game that you are. So keep that in mind. For Arena, they do give her a 7.8, so she's now another one of these PvE dominant characters. Not so much for the Arena. I think she's just too squishy, and she doesn't provide enough team utility to make her worth, but an incredible unit for any new player to start out with. She's DOH semi-limited, and for notes, the Queen of Fire magic damage. Eliza drops absolute nukes with her new spell, Big Bang. Has massive magic damage potential, while also being a solid PDPS with dual wield if need be. Her unique anima allows for better elemental management in most battles. S3 is absolutely OP when built up, and OPI 10 out of 10. This is all very true. Like, if you have the resources in order to take advantage of her PDPS, aka her S3 spam, that's what brings her up to like a 9.8, because she literally has the fastest DPS potential that we've seen out of a character with everything available in the game to you, which is extremely impressive. Very cool. I'm not mad at it because she's still balanced, right? She's not power creeping our top tier units. You need so much in order to bring out that potential, but that potential is in her, which is very dope and very nice to see, especially coming from a mage, although it's pretty ironic that at ideal she's actually a better PDPS than a mage. But for the most part, an extremely great step in bringing mages back to relevancy. She's, I think, going to be known as the true start to hopefully a shift in magic for the game. Sitting above her, my dog, still one of my, I'd say, top 3 personal favorites. We've got Advocate of God, Baran, sitting at that 9.5, so very good still. Element, neutral, and main role PDPS. Taking a look at his general usage, you can see homie sitting at a 9.6. This guy is still regarded as one of, if not the best unit to start out with as a new player, because again, he's neutral element, so you don't have to worry about elemental resistances. His damage modifiers are absolutely insane. The only thing you're going to need if you want to bring out his true potential is dual wield, which you'll have to get from the Sandworm arc, but after you get that skill on him, the whole entirety of the game is this guy's playground. So for that early game experience, 9.6. High difficulty, he does drop down to that 9.3, but then with ideal usage, aka putting dual wield on him, you're going to bring him back up to that 9.6, basically in any PvE content. And even in Arena, homie's holding a strong top tier spot at a 9.2. Again, doesn't have to worry about elemental resistances, very good damage mods that transfer over to PvP very well, and he has super armor. I'm sure we'll see more in the notes, but it allows him to not flinch while he's casting his skills. So, super great character. If you pull him during this anniversary, congrats. He's DOH, that semi-limited unit. Notes, Baran is a neutral PDPS beast. Having neutral damage means he's able to cover almost all content. Fairly bulky as well. His skills have a notably large AoE and decent range despite being a melee unit. Spammable instant infinite SCT with Ruination is amazing. I forgot to mention that. He's not only just a great DPS neutral unit, but he also comes with his self-sustaining SCT. If you go and check out my showcase I did on him, he was able to solo Reaper, who is a physically resistant boss that can only be affected by neutral damage, and frickin' Baran can go in and solo him. So absolutely insane unit. Again, one of my favorites. Love running him any chance I can, and so glad he is holding such a strong spot after a couple months of being out. Next, we got the boy Edward Elric, who is a collab character, so we're not going to go into detail, but he's sitting at a 9.5. We also have V still holding a 9.7 after all this time. I mean, once you get ailments, if you see any units that are strong suits with their ailments, they have an immediate advantage over so many other characters, because the ability to put status ailments, aka stunning, blinding, illness, cursing, if you're able to do that, you've already got a huge edge on a lot of other characters. Again, also at a 9.7, another one of my top 3. Amazing unit, but a collab unit nonetheless. So Very tough. I don't know if anyone will ever get a chance at Gen again because they already did a Dr. Stone rerun, but still sitting at the top to this day. Neutral element. Neutral gang all day, baby. 2B, 9.7. I've been enjoying her at her 5-star. I asked y'all if you wanted a 5-star showcase. You guys said yes. I still haven't made it. I'm so sorry. I'm slacking. I feel terrible about it. But she is an extremely top tier unit. 9.7 as we can see. But collab limited, we did just end the Nier Automata collab. Roy Mustang, again, like I said, for the past 5 entries now, all collab. He is one of the kings of the game right now, sitting at a 9.9. I mean, absolutely insane. Deserves this rating for sure. We're not going to go into detail just because you can't get him, and you won't be able to get him going into this 2.5 Annie. And finally, moving on to the top of the top with an average rating of a 10 out of 10. The first unit we're looking at is Spirit Maiden Theria. You can see she's got that 10. She is of the light element. Her main role is as a healer. Her sub role can be as a buffer. For her different categories, general usage 9.8. The advice that you're going to get from anyone who's been playing for a while, if you're starting a new account or re-rolling, right, you get Caldina and Sandworm off of the infinite re-roll, those 2 arcs, and then you go for Spirit Maiden Theria on the 72-hour start dash banner. Now you won't have to do that because she will be available on the Ultra DOH banner as well, although you might still want to try and go for her on the start dash banner because I believe she's on rate up. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't actually seen the banner or studied it, so I'm not sure, but this is the character you want to try and get. Not because she's your DPS. There are so many DPS units, as you saw in this game, that are very top tier, very viable, but there aren't many supports that do it like Theria. And starting out with her just on the team immediately, literally with nothing unlocked, or at least just getting her early board traits unlocked, you have extremely potent support on the team. Literally changes the game. She's one of those things that changes the game into easy mode because she can just keep tanking hits, reviving units, healing units, keeping everyone alive. Absolutely nuts. For high difficulty, she gets that 10 out of 10. For ideal usage, she also gets that 10 out of 10. Going from the 9.8 is already like just having her without anything unlocked. But then as soon as you get her unlocked and you start stacking HP ups, MP ups, other skills that can help her tankiness and or team support, she immediately goes up to that 10 out of 10 just because of how easy she makes the game feel. And you can see that in arena, she's still top of the top support at a 9.7. DOH semi-limited unit, as we know. We've been putting respect on Spirit Maiden Theria's name for a while. Let's take a look at her notes. There's not much here. The perfect healer. She requires her team to deal the damage, but her ability to keep them alive is unparalleled. Easily the game's top unit, not even a contest. So I think the fact that she fulfills a role that's not saturated and she does it literally the best is why the global community considers her the best unit in the game, because of those exact reasons. There are so many great DPS units that it's easier to identify who's better than who for what reasons, but with Spirit Maiden Theria, she's definitively the best healer in the game. She keeps everyone alive. She changes your team from a mid-level performance team to a high-level performance team just by being on the team herself. So I can absolutely understand why she would still be regarded as the game's top unit. But there is someone who is sitting above her, at least on how the tier list is categorized, and that is our boy Lougseus. Some people are going to get so mad at these ratings, but I'm going to try and do my best to explain what I think is the reasoning that Lougseus has the ratings he does here. So another 10 out of 10 unit. He is Dark Element. Main role PDPS, his sub role can be a mage. As we see in his kit, he comes with so many damage modifiers and caster SC saves that it's ridiculous. SC refers to skill cost, which just means that you won't have to teach him manually so many skills from different arcs to make him very effective in his respective roles. His categories, they give him a 10 across the entire board. Now, I feel like this is fueled by tweaks more so than anyone else, because when you have the right tools for Lougseus, he's literally a god. He is a god of the game. He's extremely tanky. His DPS is very hard to be matched. Roy is really the only one. Roy and 2B come kind of close, and now Eliza completely maxed out with everything available. But Lougseus is still, he is the cream of the crop when it comes to DPS. He's very tanky. He has mage and healing capabilities if you want. In any top tier boss, any multiplayer boss, if you bring him correctly built, he's going to be your most dominant unit in that whole fight. For arena, he's just ridiculous the way he can nuke the entire team with his S3 and his S2. They're skills that persist. That means that if you launch the skill and then get flinched, the skill's still going to go into completion. There's so much to Lougseus that puts him on another level of performance compared to a lot of these other units. Now, in terms of general usage, right, like I said, I think his general usage should be dropped a little bit. While he's going to be incredible for new players, even as I experienced in my showcase with him, I brought him in with like nothing taught to him and just his base kit, and he was still great, but he's not performing at a 10 out of 10 with very limited things. If you're lacking things like weapon equips, dual wield, Trishula, he's going to need all of those to really bring out his 10 out of 10 potential, in my opinion. So for me, I would drop this general usage down a little bit. I'm sure that there are some high-level reasoning as to why he's a 10 out of 10 at this state, but for me, I think he should be knocked down a couple pegs. He is incredible. He is the best in the game when he's set up properly, which requires resources that not everyone's going to have. But once you do get those resources, high difficulty, ideal usage, and arena, all 10 out of 10. For sure, no questions asked. I have no counter arguments to these reasonings here. Especially using him to that full potential, there's just not a lot that comes close. He feels like a cheat code in the game. DOH semi-limited, I imagine he's going to be on the Ultra DOH banner, and depending on how SHIDA comes into the game, we know SHIDA is going to be the next big anniversary unit who was teased to be a dark, physical, and magic attacker. That was literally the words that Kit used to describe SHIDA. So he's got a lot of competition. If you see a lot of people in the community like, well, is he just going to be a Lougseus clone? Is he going to be a better version? Is he going to be just the same? Is he going to be a worse version? Right, a lot of people are comparing him to Lougseus. So SHIDA's going to need to bring something to the table that either synchronizes with Lougseus, which would just be ridiculous because it would make Lougseus look even better, or he needs to bring some type of utility or feature to the game that we haven't seen before that rivals or counters the argument that if you have Lougseus, you have absolutely no use for SHIDA practically and should just save your crystals for the next unit that's going to benefit your account. But let's look at his notes. Lougseus is a premier top tier dark DPS. He has access to insane damage cap raises and some great skills, and can even focus on magic if needed. He raises the bar for DPS, hands down, and having enhancement 5 on release is a nice bonus. He does get countered by dark resistance, so Trishula is sometimes needed again. Like, they could have put some more in the notes. The fact that you need dual wield to bring out his real damage potential. You need those weapon equips because in his normal and his base state, he can't equip any armor or weapons, so you're gonna need those arcs in order to get those on him. I mean, you can get like sword equip on him very easily with the R arc coastline sword or something like that, so it's not that big of a deal. But then to get Trishula on him, you need an arc with machine equip, which I think are only on SSR arcs. So again, homeboy needs a lot of it to get to that 10 out of 10 in my opinion, but he literally blows the standards out of the water in terms of what the top of the top can bring to the table. So I get why he's sitting at the top of this tier list on his throne, rightfully so. Barleen said he was going to be the top of the power curve for a while. We don't know when they're going to start power creeping that. They've definitely done things like having Eliza's S3 be what it is when fully built out. Having Roy definitely rivals Lougseus in the DPS department. But in terms of like an all-around unit, Lougseus he literally just does it the best. And there we go, guys. Nice long recording. I'm going to have some fun editing that. Y'all are going to have a nice long tier list video to look through. But it should be a very good one. I enjoyed reading these. I agree with a lot of the analysis that we saw in this tier list. Y'all saw that a lot of my opinions matched up with the notes. Probably because I talk a lot and play a lot with tweaks. So I'm a little biased in a sense, but for new players, this is going to give you a very, very good idea of the general stance that these units are sitting at and their ideal uses where they're going to find they fit best in certain roles. So glad with how this video went, and I need to get to editing it so that y'all can watch it and I can get ready for the next one, because we've got a lot of videos to make in anticipation for this 2.5 Annie, and I'm excited to be here with y'all until it drops. Y'all already know I should start prepping y'all for what's coming, so you already know a locked and loaded summon live stream is coming. We're gonna go ham. Y'all know the vibes. I'm very excited to do one of those. Last time we did the 2-year Annie live stream, it was such a rush, such a huge hit. I can't wait to see what this one brings. I hope y'all are able to make it. I hope y'all are excited for this event that's coming. And that's all I got for you this time, guys. Like, sub, hit that bell notification if you're hyped, and turn on all notifications if you want to make sure and know exactly when I post. In case of emergency situations, you won't be out of the loop. Consider joining the Discord in case you want to chat with me off of YouTube and talk with the rest of the Buddha gang 24/7, open all hours of the day. With all that being said, guys, y'all know what we say. Work hard, play harder. See you in the next video.